Hi, I'm Meg Lee, the Director of Organizational Development, and I'm here with Kent Wetzel, Teacher Specialist for Leadership Development. I asked Kent to join me today so that we could share with you some of the latest research around homework as a topic for Frederick County Public Schools. Kent, let's make sure that everyone understands what mind-brain education is before we get started today.
Sure. Mind-brain education is the intersection between cognitive neuroscience, educational research, and psychology, and where those fields intersect.
Okay, and research in that area really helps to inform our practice, and that's one of the reasons why Frederick County is aiming to be a research-informed school district. Now, I know there are lots of really strong opinions out there about homework, Kent.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we look at homework, there could be multiple lenses that people are coming at it with. First of all, we've all been learners our whole lives, so we think about how do we approach homework when we were a learner or are a learner? And then we have to think about it in terms of being an educator. We've given homework over the years when we were in the classroom. And then lastly, if we're a parent, we need to think about what does that look like for our families at home.
It sounds like it's a really nuanced topic. Like many things in mind-brain education science, as we look at what the research informs, we realize that radical opinions for or against homework are probably oversimplifications of a pretty complex situation.
Yeah, it can be really nuanced, and so you have to think of all the different angles that are coming at it when we're talking about homework.
The other thing I think we need to remember as a district that is focused on closing the achievement gap is we need to think about the whole child. And so that's why I really wanted to ground our conversation today in the whole child graphic from CZI. This graphic was created by Dr. Brooke Stafford Brizard after lots of research about all the components that make up whole child development. And one of the things we know is that while homework might live in those academic and cognitive areas of the whole child development, we have to consider other factors too. So as we think about equity-based moves about homework, I think we've gotten pretty good in the last decade or so to think about resources that students might have. So I think equity, though, is more than just whether we have adequate resources to complete the task at home. Equity also means that we think about each and every student through the lens of the other pieces of their whole child development. For instance, the child's cultural background. Does the child see themselves reflected in the homework and understand the importance of it? The child's other responsibilities outside of school, as a caregiver, as a part-time worker, as an athlete. And I think the one that resonates with me the most in terms of student health and well-being is this argument about how much sleep children should get. And so it's really interesting in thinking about homework. I know our friend Dr. Ian Kelleher often says that if you're looking at the bang for the buck with learning, if the contest is between a homework assignment and a student getting adequate sleep that would allow that REM cycle to cycle their learning into long-term memory, sleep wins every time.
So let's look a little bit about some of the research that involves homework. Is there any solid research, Meg, about the age of a student and the value of the homework that they're being given?
It's something that's been looked at quite a bit, Kent, and the meta-studies seem to show that homework is most beneficial for students older than third grade. And what's really interesting is it's more positive in higher grades, it's less positive in lower grades, and sometimes it's even a negative impact educationally in elementary school.
And that definitely has impacts when you're looking at what grades are going to do that homework.
It does. Kent, what kinds of homework show the most value for learning?
So when we look at homework and we're thinking about what kinds of homework we're going to do, the most powerful kind of homework that you give kids is extension homework, where you're extending that learning beyond the school day. Some practicing of retrieval, things like self-testing and quizzing. The most important thing we want to think about is we don't want to give kids new learning that they're going to tackle on their own. We want that learning to happen first in school and then use that time outside of school to practice or to extend that learning. So when we talk about how much homework, Meg, what kinds of amounts of homework should we be giving kids, and what does that look like?
Well, it's interesting. The research seems to say that it's better to do a little bit of homework regularly than a lot of homework every once in a while. And so I think that's really an interesting thing for us to think about as educators. And again, it becomes very nuanced because as students get older, they have many teachers. And so the collaboration between teachers about who's giving homework is important. That gets to be really important in high school because the research is pretty clear that more than 2 hours of homework a night is not associated with greater levels of achievement. And I think maybe an individual teacher might feel that they're not giving more than 2 hours of homework a night, but cumulatively it can be pretty heavy for kids.
And that could be hard to keep track of as well.
Very much. Ken, one last question I think would be really helpful is, can you talk a little bit about what the research says about the role of the teacher in homework?
Well, it's really important that a homework isn't a one-off or a one and done. When we're giving students homework, we really need to think about what do we have to do on our end as an educator, and the most powerful thing that we can do is give that feedback to continue that metacognitive cycle so that students see the value in the homework, see how it connects to what we're doing in class the next day or a day or two later, and that feedback is what really amplifies the power of that homework.
Thanks so much for sharing with me today a little bit of information on homework. We hope that's been helpful for you.